All right, so have you ever got stuck in a rut when you're learning all these cool arpeggios and shapes, and then you try and use them and you're like, how do I actually use these in a song? Well, I'm going to show you a really cool way of how you can play all the arpeggios in a given key with just two really easy shapes. One way to make it a lot easier is to break it down into pieces. An arpeggio is literally just a triad. It's the root, the third, and the fifth. So there's a way you can play an arpeggio. It's just go root, third, fifth. There's basically three ways you can play that. You can play it going backwards like this, or you can play it like this, kind of in the middle, or you can stretch out like this. So there's kind of three different fingerings you can use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack two of those on top of each other and over 2 octaves. So there's your arpeggio. So you're doing that backwards one, and then this middle one. So that's the basic G major arpeggio. Now what's cool is every major chord has a minor chord that's associated with it, and that's basically the relative minor. And how you find that is you just go to your root, and then you just go down 3 frets from your root. So E minor is the relative to G major. What you can do is just play exactly the same thing I just showed you, but just add in that E note here. And instead of it being an E minor, it's going to become an E minor 7 chord. So it's an E minor with the G note in it, but it's a great arpeggio. It sounds actually really cool. And it goes like this. So you've got your root, third, fifth, and then there's the 7th there. And then you just repeat that an octave higher again. So here I'm going to use this shape. So there's an E minor 7 arpeggio. And it looks just like this, just like the first shape I showed you. But you're just adding in the E notes right here and here. So it's exactly the same, but you're just adding in that E note. But what happens then is it becomes a 4-note arpeggio instead of a triad, because it's got the 7th in it. But as soon as you start adding those notes and making the arpeggios into 7th chords, all of a sudden it opens up a whole nother world. Whereas instead of it sounding like this kind of broken chord, it begins to sound more melodic. You can kind of rock back and forth. It's almost like a pentatonic scale. In fact, when you think about it, a minor 7 arpeggio has 4 notes in it. 1, 2, 3, 4. A pentatonic scale has 5 notes in it. So they're very similar. So it has that almost pentatonic flavor to it. Okay, you got your major, and then the relative minor. Okay, so then you just got the next major chord in the key. So the major chords in the key are always going to be the 1, 4, 5. So in the key of G, you've got G, C, and D. So you're going to go to your G major chord, your C major chord, and then your D major chord here. And then you're just going to put the relative minor chords right with them. So you've got your C chord here, go down 3 frets, and then play that minor 7 arpeggio. So there's your 2 shapes, and then the relative, and then you go to the next chord, the 5 chord. I'm going to play it down here. Here's a D major, and then the relatives right down here's B minor 7. Then all of a sudden, with those 2 shapes, that's all the chords except for one. I'll show you that in a minute, that you need in a given key. So you've got your 1 chord, and the relative minor, the 4 chord, and then the relative minor, the 5 chord, and then the relative. So that's 6 chords. If I now do them in order, one of the ways you can think about it in music is you've got your major scale. And basically you just kind of hang a chord on each note of that scale. So you've got G, A minor, B minor, C, D major, E minor, and then the last chord, the leading chord, is this kind of mysterious sounding, it's like a half diminished chord. It's called a minor 7 flat 5. So those are all the chords in the key of G major, the 7 chords. And then you're just going to arpeggiate them. So we already know the shapes, but now we're going to do them in this order. So we've got G major, and then A minor. I'm going to do the minor 7. B minor, C major, D major, E minor 7. And then the last one, here's how you play it. This is a killer sounding arpeggio. It's just a minor arpeggio, but you flat the 5th. So instead of going, you go. So it's got this beautiful diminished sounding. Okay. Now a good thing you could do is turn that into a 7th, so it connects it. Isn't that a cool sounding arpeggio? And you see actually what I'm doing there is I'm taking that arpeggio and I'm kind of rocking up and down. I'm finding little melodies within it. And that's actually a really big part of how you actually use these arpeggios, rather than just kind of sweeping across them. You know, that's kind of cool, but it's like, I don't know. You can only get away with that for so long before it just sounds like you're showing off, you know. But if you rock around in these scales where you're going... You can find little melodies within them. All kinds of interesting stuff. So what you end up with is this group of 7 arpeggios that are all connected to each other. They're all in this position. So in the key of G, you've got G major, A minor 7, B minor 7, sorry, C, D. I'm going to play it like this. Really easy to play. It's just this. There's your... And then E minor. And then this cool last one. And then that's basically like in the song, I'll play it in a minute, Sunny River, that's what they're doing in this song, is they're basically using these arpeggio shapes. Using all these kind of cool shapes there, but using them as melodies. So take a listen to the song. It's a lot of fun to play this song, and hopefully you'll have fun with your arpeggios too.